Okay, so my TED Talk is over concussions, and it's by me, Awesome. Okay, so what a concussion is and how it affects someone. So a concussion is when someone suffers a blunt force trauma to their head or brain. So what the insides of your brain do, they shake up. So you ever seen like a gelatin brain where all the pink stuff, it looks like it's like candy? All that shakes up and it mixes up, so then it causes your brain to have long-term effects and short-term effects. So some short-term effects would be nausea, vomiting, severe headaches, and some long-term effects would be not being able to see right, not being able to read, having trouble with that. I actually have had 5 concussions, and so I actually did deal with some long-term effects where these happened when I was younger. So when I was in about like 6th grade, I suffered a really bad concussion, but we'll get to that later. The major long-term effects are people have, you know how people are special needs? People can turn into like that, but it's not as bad, but they have trouble pronouncing stuff, comprehending what people say, and being able to talk back. Okay, so my inspiration is I've suffered 5 concussions. 4 of them weren't as bad as my last one. My last one that I suffered was in 6th grade. It was very bad. I was playing basketball and I got flipped in midair and I landed on my head into the ground. And so I actually ended up with a very bad concussion and a skull fracture and a brain bleed. So I ended up spending the night in the hospital, and if the blood hadn't, like, it clotted, but if it had kept on clotting, then I would have hadn't gotten surgery. And it could have, if that blood hadn't stayed clotting, gotten worse and worse, then it could have spread to parts of my major parts of my brain, where then I would not be able to comprehend and think and experience like everybody else. Okay, so why are concussions a growing problem? Concussions are a growing problem because there is no solution for them and they can happen so easily. So right now, on average, about 3.8 million people per year in the US alone have concussions. About 153 people per year die from concussions. Per day die from concussions. And in the recent years, every single year from on, there's been about a 15% increase in concussions in high school sports. Like Ryan had a concussion at the beginning of the year. There's no solution to it, and so right now people they're not caring about it because there's nothing to solve it. Like, people say, okay, flu, I'll get the flu shot and I'm fine, but there's no solution for concussions. Okay, so the products on the right now on the market are like, there's stuff like this padding right here. So I actually, after my 5th concussion, I was told that I'm not allowed to play football anymore because the doctors shut me down completely. And so even for baseball, I still have to be protective. So what I did is I had to get this green foam thing. It's from Unequal Sports. It's about, I think, a 1/2 inch thick padding, and it goes into your cap. So even though when you do get hit in the head, it disperses the energy. But what happened, of course, was I was pitching one day and I got a line drive hit at me, and boom, it went right off my head, and the padding, it just crumbled. I could bring the padding, but it's actually shredded because as soon as that ball hit, it snapped off one of the sides and it actually deteriorated the middle part because the ball came at such force. I dealt with a severe headache for about 2 weeks. I had to go to the doctor. I went through the machines and everything, got my head checked, and gladly they didn't find anything bad enough. And since I had a really bad concussion with the brain bleed, I always have to, when I go to the doctor, they always check me because they never know that brain bleed could come back if it hadn't sealed or anything. And so right now there's nothing. As soon as for football, that's the biggest sport that has most concussions. They have this, but they don't have it in the helmet. This is just for 7-on-7. I'm pretty sure Roman has played with it. So yeah. So my solution to concussions is, right now, concussions, you can't prepare for them. When you're playing sports, yes, of course, but if you're in a car and you end up in a crash, and you suffer concussion, you can't prepare for that. You can't wear football padding the whole time, or even if you're walking around, there's been stories about people, they're just walking, they fall downstairs, and then they suffer concussions. So you can't really prepare for that. So what my solution is that I wanted to create a synthetic gel that could be liquefied. And you know how you get the flu shot, like a nasal spray? I wanted to get it like a nasal spray, because the nasal cavity is the only one that allows it to go between that's the only cavity that goes up to your brain, and that's the only one that allows stuff through it and get into the circulation of your brain. So what it is there's part of the nasal cavity where it can reach out to the skull, because you need oxygen to go around. So there's between your skull and your skin, I think there's about like a ½ inch of space that's just like where oxygen would flow through. So what my solution is that gel goes through the nasal cavity and it forms around the surface of your head. So it creates a thick, solid wall where if you do get hit at unexpected times, that this solid wall would disperse the energy to where you don't suffer concussion, and maybe you just have a headache. And every time someone suffers concussion, they're more susceptible to suffer another one. So even if you do not suffer a concussion, you can still come get this implanted into your brain. But it's more for people that have already suffered a concussion, so that they don't suffer it again. So here's what my prototype looks like. This is the final product of it. This is what it wouldn't be as thick as this, but this would form to the person's head shape and stuff. So this is it's a solid thing where if something hits it, it disperses energy throughout it, and so it reduces people from having such great deal of trauma. Okay, so how my solution connects to all 4 core classes. My solution's mainly based around chemistry, because I went through in science, and it's so my solution, when you mix it, it turns into like a solid / liquid. It's like a mixture of them. And so what I want to do is I'm going to liquefy it like I did. You add water and you liquefy the solution, and so you liquefy the solution, and when it goes through the nasal cavity, it'll turn into a solid. So it changes physical states of matter. And then for math, I focus on exponentials, more on exponential growth, where as the years go on, concussions are increasing, and death rates are increasing, and people being susceptible, those rates are increasing too. So what I'm trying to do with this solution is I'm trying to get it to a point where it stops and it starts declining. So it'd be like a absolute value equation, where it'd be like a negative absolute value equation, where it'd be negative and then the absolute values and then x, where it hits a point and then it starts decreasing because a solution was made. And so this connects to human geography through culture, because a lot of the sports where you suffer concussions and traditions that people perform are mainly based off of sports. And so lots of people suffer concussions, and it makes them not want to do it. It makes them want to go astray from their tradition. But if this solution is created and implemented, people can continue their culture and their traditions on. And then it relates to English through research. Everything is based off of research. I'm trying to research more and more, so down the future that we can create a synthetic gel that can be like even more easily implanted through a shot or something else, where it doesn't take several appointments to get all of it covered throughout the brain. There's my sources, and thank you.